It was the brainchild of Finance Minister Greg Pearce. 18 months ago, there was sweeping reform of the state's workers' compensation scheme. The major promise? To cut spiralling costs and help injury victims get back to work sooner. But Greg Pearce is no longer a minister, and in parliamentary hearings today, witnesses have given evidence that the scheme favours the interests of insurers ahead of the injured. Tonight we will hear from a leading medico who says the new system is too harsh. Bridget Glanville reports.
It's 9 a.m. and there is silence as the hearing room stands and acknowledges 2 dead workers, both killed in the last 30 hours.
Good, thank you very much.
But soon the focus is firmly on injured workers and the heated debate over access to compensation. Politicians raise concerns.
All MPs get representations. We get correspondence saying we need to turn the clock back in terms, especially journey claims.
And WorkCover, the main insurer, was put through its paces.
How could that possibly happen? You're making legislation that requires insurers to comply with a guide that never even existed. How did that stuff up happen?
The important point here is that we've rectified that.
No, could you answer my question? How did the stuff up happen?
I'm not able to answer that question at the moment.
Workers told of a scheme failing them.
I was dealing with an injured worker who had suffered a psychological injury. Made an appointment, all approved by the insurer, to go and see a psychiatrist of their choice. The insurer then cancelled that appointment and said, no, you're going to see our psychiatrist. You've got 24 hours to get there or we'll cut your weekly benefits off.
66-year-old Ian Gelling echoes these stories. He can't walk without a stick after 2 workplace accidents. The first one, he smashed his ankle tripping over machinery. In the second accident, he disturbed a nest of European wasps while shoveling mulch. Hundreds of stings almost killing him.
Constant pain. I wake up around 1 o'clock every morning and can't get back to sleep with the pain and just sit up in the chair all night.
His injuries were classified at 48% whole person impairment, much higher than most amputees and one of the highest levels in the seriously injured worker category.
But basically arthritis would set in and I would be more crippled up than I am, which is happening. I won't get better, only get worse.
His medical expenses were covered for life, but under the new laws, he's now being cut off because he's reached retirement age, and the change was a shock.
I didn't understand a lot about the changing because the insurance company didn't tell me a lot. They left it for me to find out myself, fair means or foul.
WorkCover Independent Review Officer Kim Garling says this is a common problem.
There was insufficient information given out by WorkCover, either on their website or in information given to the medical profession or to the unions about what the impacts were.
WIRO, or the WorkCover Independent Review Officer, was set up as the regulator of WorkCover and deals with complaints from workers. Its latest annual report is critical of many aspects of the scheme, partly that workers don't know they're there to help them.
Despite the lack of information about our service being communicated to workers, we received 4,005 calls in the 9 months to the 30th of June.
The report also backs up claims that workers are the ones who are being hardest hit. Under the new laws, workers and insurance companies aren't allowed to pay for legal advice. But increasingly, insurers have found a loophole and can now use in-house legal teams.
The reforms to the system meant that the injured worker doesn't have easy access to legal advice. The insurer does. That must disadvantage the worker.
You're going the other way. No, you've got to go the other way.
Now the medical profession has also spoken out criticising the scheme.
Okay, thanks.
Dr Brian Owler is a neurosurgeon and has treated many workers' compensation patients with spine or brain injuries. Today, sterilised and masked up in this Sydney private hospital, he's operating on a private patient. He says he no longer provides surgery to insurance claimants.
It's simply become impractical to see patients, offer them treatment, only to have it refused time and time again by an insurer. Or the patient often has their treatment delayed to such an extent that I fear for the welfare of the patient.
Worse still, he says under the new scheme, patients are now being put at risk.
There was a patient who came to see me with a disc that was a work-related injury, pressing on the nerves in their spine. I suggested that patient go and have surgery as soon as possible. It was quite a severe case. That patient went for an independent medical examination, was told that they had bone cancer and that this was not a disc. They never had bone cancer, and the independent medical examination was incorrect.
He also says the scheme favours the insurers and not workers.
What the government needs to do is look at the scheme agents and their behaviour. There are things that can be done to improve the independent medical examination aspect of these cases, but I think the behaviour of the scheme agents has not been something that's been dealt with. So the approach to work cover has been purely a financial one, where the approach has been to try and reduce the amount that's paid out for treatments. And I would agree that there are some cases where the scheme has been abused, in some cases by a small group of doctors, which has been addressed, but also by patients. So there has to be a balance there. And the pendulum has swung far too much towards favouring the scheme agents over the outcomes and the welfare of the injured worker.
As the inquiry continued today, Work Cover maintained reforms are working.
And I have just done that. I have just answered the question. It may be that I haven't given the answer that you're expecting.
And there's no dispute, the scheme now has a surplus of $309 million, a quick turnaround from a $4 billion deficit.
In 2011, 2012, in New South Wales achieved a major claim incident rate of 8.7 per 1,000 workers, the lowest incident rate since 1987.
Greens MP David Shoebridge says there is systemic failure in the workers' compensation scheme.
If you wanted to have a case study in setting up a bureaucracy that ensures the vulnerable people who need assistance can't get it, well, you'd establish the New South Wales Workers' Compensation Scheme. You'd exclude legal representation. You'd empower insurers, and you'd limit benefits. That's exactly what we've got in New South Wales.
While the political debate rages, Ian Gelling has cancelled specialist appointments and won't be receiving an ankle operation anytime soon.
I don't do any more of that now because I've got to pay for them myself, and I can't afford that, so I simply don't do it.
Bridget Glanville reporting. It's